Good afternoon, everyone. Guys, so this is one of those videos where I guess it's just confirmation of the things I've been saying. Basically, now MI5 are coming out and they're warning of mayhem on our streets. I've been warning about this for such a long time, and the mainstream media are now catching up to what we've been saying on this channel. And actually, they're using the same terminology that we've been using for months. Doesn't really matter at this point what terminology these people use. The reality is this: we are going to see a concerted effort of sabotage, criminal gangs, all sorts of coordinated attacks on the streets in the United Kingdom in the next coming months, certainly, as these global conflicts expand, as the war in Israel escalates further and further, as the war against Russia in eastern Ukraine escalates further and further. All these things are just going to build up and build up and build up. And at some point, you're going to see more of a build up on the streets in the United Kingdom. And as well, this goes on the streets in Europe in general, on the streets in the United States as well. Because don't forget, while the United Kingdom is going to be focused predominantly on the Eastern Front, potentially fighting the Russians, the United States are going to be bogged down in a conflict in the Middle East. So they're going to open themselves up to a lot of, Iranian inspired attacks, a lot of Iranian sponsored attacks. So that's just the way we're going. So from an article from today then, guys, and it's, I guess it is breaking. It's breaking news unless you've been following this channel. So I'll go to the share screen now. So this is from the MI5. Well, I'll show you in a minute, actually. Russia is trying to create mayhem on the UK streets. MI5 bosses warn. So there's a picture of Vladimir Putin. And like most stuff, guys, you need to get right. Well, you need to get to the bottom to understand why it's... look at him. How old is he? He looks about 15. More than over the last month, more than a third of MI5's top priority investigations had links to organized overseas terrorist groups. Now, if we keep going down, here it is, guys. So let's read this actually. More than 750 Russian diplomats, many of them spies, have been expelled from Europe since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. While this has dented Russia's intelligence service, Mr. McCallum, is it McCallum? Yeah. Mr. McCallum said they are on a sustained mission to generate mayhem on British and European streets with, wait for it, arson and sabotage and more. So guys, remember when I months and months and months ago I did a top 10 video and I said the top 10 things, the top 10 targets that these would be targeting, and I mentioned I talked about all of this in depth. Now where is it? Mayhem on the streets. Well, you know what, I'll come back to that after we've done this. He had a message to criminals considering taking on work for hostile states, saying, if you take... Guys, it's wild because I've been warning about this for such a long time. If you take... Where are we? If you take money from Iran, Russia, or any other state to carry out illegal acts in the UK, you will bring the full weight of the national security apparatus down on you. It's a choice you'll regret. So I'll share this link in the description, but in fact, let me come off this now. So what we can see here now is, MI5, MI6, the police, whoever, they're talking about things now we've talked about for months. What I will say is these criminals, it's very difficult to, to target these criminals. That's kind of just like a warning, because the reality is these criminal gangs, they won't know that they're working for a foreign, they won't know they're working for the Russians, for example. So how would I do it if I was Vladimir Putin? Well, if I was Vladimir Putin, I'd probably not do anything. I'd just go and retire with all my money. But if I was Vladimir Putin and I wanted to, campaign a war of mayhem on the streets of the United Kingdom, first of all, I give a budget to some of my lieutenants, and then they'd pocket half of that, and then eventually that'd work its way down to the front line. Now, I'll go with the water supply. I always talk about the water supply because I think it's the most vulnerable. It's the easiest one to do. You know, it just makes it makes no sense not to attack your enemy's water supply if you can do it cheap, effective, and with minimum comeback. So this is how I do it, guys. I would get one of my lieutenants or someone to speak to someone else, and there'd be so many layers of this you wouldn't be able to trace it back. And I would get them to go and find these criminal gangs, wherever you find them from. And I would say, listen, to the criminal gang leader, or however it works, I would say, listen, you know, my auntie, she used to work for this water company. Now, she had a really bad accident, and the water company they've just not given her, you know, they're not giving her a payout, or, you know, or she's been fired and she's really angry. Or I'd make up some excuse why I have a grudge with this water company. I then say to said criminal gang, you know, would you be willing to go and just on, I don't know, I'm speculating, on next Friday at 2:00, would you be willing to go and destroy this pipe at this location? Would you be willing to do that for me? And you know, and I'll pay you, I don't know, X amount of pounds, and then once it's completed, I'll pay you more. I'll give you more money to, you know, to prove it's completed. Would you be willing to do that for me? Yes, of course. You know, the criminal gangs, by de facto, they're involved in crime. I would also give the same story to 10 other criminal gangs that are operating, you know, in different parts of the country. But I would, you know, everybody would be doing this at the same time. So now you would have 10 criminal gangs all operating independently from each other. None of those criminal gangs think they're working for a state, you know, government. They just think they're smashing a water pipe up because some old lady fell down and the water company didn't pay her out, or something, you know, something like that. Guess what? The time comes, maybe some of them don't do it. Doesn't matter, because the other guys are going to do it. That's how you inflict coordinated sabotage. How can this be traced back to Russia? How can it be traced back to Iran? It's very difficult to trace these things back. It's very difficult to find people, you know, guilty of this, because one of the main ways that you can build up these networks is by communication, and it's by, you know, transfer of funds. If they're doing, I think it's called hawala. If they're doing hawalas, I think it is hawala. It's hawalas, I think it's an Arabic word, but it's used around the world now. Basically, if I'm an oligarch in the United Kingdom and I know another oligarch in Russia, you know, and I need to send some, and the guy in Russia needs to send some money to the United Kingdom, he'll just phone me up. He'll say, "Da, chuvak, shonik," and he'll say, you know, I need you to give, a guy's going to come, he's going to be at this location, I need you to give him 50 grand. And, you know, and the other guy just says, yeah, okay, no problem. He gives his guy 50 grand, and then he goes and gives it him. There's no questions asked. There's no, you know, there's no paperwork. There's no forensic trace. There's no financial trace. You can't trace that. It's impossible. You know, so that's how they, you know, and then once those people have been paid, it's virtually impossible. MI5 know this. The security services know this. They understand what a task they're up against. Now, these things are coming, you know. I keep warning about them, and then, you know, months later, like this article shows, it will come out on the mainstream. And once, after the US election, once these things, you know, once everybody's set, once the Middle East has, what's the word I'm looking for? Once the Middle East has been, is it a sufficient state for the United States to get involved? Once the Russians have made sufficient gains in Eastern Europe, that's when you're going to see all this erupt. I can remember back in, after the invasion of Iraq in 2003, it was kind of an, Not really much happened in 2003. Not much happened in 2004, 2005. And then for some reason, we know now, because this was really, this was orchestrated by Iran. But for some reason, in 2006, everything just absolutely erupted. There were, the whole Middle East was just in flames. Whereas the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan had been relatively low level, low intensity, the intensity just went through the roof. And you saw lots of casualties, lots of coordinated strikes, and it was very difficult to keep up. Now, the police in the United Kingdom, they're not geared up to deal with such threats. If you guys think about, I can't remember when it was, the Charlie Hebdo incident, where you had two guys with, I'm not sure what AK variants they were, but you had two guys with assault rifles. And they closed down Paris, two guys with assault rifles. The police in the United Kingdom are not ready for these sorts of attacks. And let me just quickly go back onto that article, because it did say something, actually. Where is it? It did say something actually quite near the top. Where was it? I'm sure it said something with plot after plot. Where are we? Right, guys. It did say something about fire. I'm sure it said something about firearms. And there we are. Yeah. So let me share this as well with you guys. I'm actually surprised that this was a thing, because I didn't think this was a thing. But hang on. Yeah. So here from the article again, look. He said some plotters planned mass murder through the use of firearms and explosives. Now, that goes one step further. That's another step. These really are dark terrorism, attacks, and there's no way around that. But when we're thinking about people right now in the United Kingdom plotting mass murder through the use of firearms and explosives. And, there's certain things you can't talk about on these platforms, and there's certain things you can't say, until it comes out on the mainstream. But just think about that, guys. Right now, there's a potential for people in the United Kingdom to be plotting mass murder by the use of firearms and explosives. And I've said this many, many, many times before. These migrants coming across the water, could it be possible? And I'm not saying that they are. I'm asking a question. Could it be possible that they have towing at the back of their rubber dinghy, they have a waterproof bag with explosives, with munitions, with contraband in, and if that rubber dinghy is not intercepted by the RNLI, they bring that ashore. If it is intercepted by if it is intercepted by the RNLI, they just unclip untie it, and it just sinks to the bottom of the water. Of course, these criminal gangs, of course, these smuggling gangs are going to know the best routes that have got the highest chance of interception. Of course, they're going to know the most likely times to make it over the channel without being intercepted. So that's the reality on the streets in the United Kingdom now. We've got the chief of the MI5 saying that people are plotting mass murder in the United Kingdom with explosives and firearms. Guys, I think I'm just going to leave it there, because that's pretty much, without reiterating stuff that I've said and rehashing old videos, that is the crux of this. These are the things that are happening on our streets right now. I've been warning about it for such a long time. I've been saying the main threat is going to come from sabotage, which it is. I've not been able to say such words because videos will get taken down for misinformation. Videos will get taken down for, other things. But now, it's come out on Sky News. It's come out that the mainstream media are talking about it. MI5 are talking about it. The plot to use for mass murder, the, explosives and firearms. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to max grade. I'll get you guys another video later.